Okay, since we've come back from a hiatus, Gavin, our special guest Gavin, pick a number between 1 and 5.
4.
4 it is. You've chosen Go Get 'em Tiger as our theme song for today.
I think we've had that one before.
Yeah. Well, we've cycled through these so now we just have to decide as a league which one we like the most. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and we'll get it going. All right. Oh, it feels good to be back. The Other League podcast, week 14. The playoffs are here. Gentlemen, good to have you. Let's go ahead and crack them. It's a lovely sound. I am joined by Wesley Fall and Gavin Gilmore, my two East Coast brethren. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Wesley,
hanging in there, ready for the weekend.
You're hanging in there. The place looks great with all the Christmas decorations.
Thank you. That's all my wife.
And in the spirit of festivities, since we've taken a slight break, I believe you have some unfinished business from a few podcasts ago. You want to show the gang what you're working with over there?
Yeah. So gave a little backstory to Chris earlier, but my household, we like Fireball, and no, we don't have a problem. But ABC was selling a keg of Fireball, so we had to get it. It's only roughly 3 handles, so it's great for parties. You know, if anybody's feeling a little feisty at the party, they can mellow out with some Fireball.
So. Yeah, because Fireball, notorious drink of choice for people who want to mellow out.
Yep.
So what you're making good on right here, there was a bet a while back on the podcast. It was 2 shots between the two of us. You were saying that TJ Hawkinson would score twice in one matchup, and I believe that week he did not see the end zone. So you've got 2 shots of Fireball to make good on.
Yeah. Thank you, TJ. I can't wait to not have you next year.
I feel like next year he might actually be all right. He jumped to a new team. It's a good high-powered offense for the most part. Ooh.
Yeah, no. Fireball, it's great.
Ooh. All right, I'll remain silent for this next one. I want to see it in full force.
I actually think he'll be good next year too, but I'm pretty sure his keeper value is like 1st or 2nd round, and he's not that elite yet. He's elite, but he's no Jimmy G. All right.
Keep in mind next time, Wes, Dr. Pepper is a good chaser for Fireball.
Yeah, well, all I have is Bud Light, so here we are. Here you are, Hawkinson. Oh, lovely.
All right, now that we've squared that away, we are looking into week 14. That means we have one more week until playoffs begin in the other league. So let's take a look at where things currently stand going into our final week of the regular season. With a 100% playoff percentage, we have 3 teams in the Western Division. We have Alex Dragon, Corey Funderburg, and Patrick Dragon, all sitting at 9-4 with a 100% playoff clinch. Meanwhile, in the East, we have Alex Orbeck at the top of the pack at 8-5, and our CPU team duking it out for the final playoff spot. Alex Orbeck currently sitting at 82% in his playoff chances, in the CPU team sitting at 18%, 1 game back. Gavin, Wesley, how are you guys feeling about that current roster of playoff contenders?
Why don't you take it away, Gavin? I'm still recovering.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was pretty surprised this year, you know, tossing lettuce going from 10th projected to number 1 overall going in. That was a surprise. I really thought that some different teams would have a better chance, and some of them, you know, they showed up to play when they needed to. Even when they had low scores, they still won. So hats off to them.
I will tell you what surprised me about the current playoff seeding is as one, Alex Dragon's team was kind of a shocker after looking at the way it was drafted, but we made a mention of it a few podcasts ago about how many roster moves Alex had made. And he was leading the league in total number of transactions, whether it was just picking up defenses off the waiver wire or initiating trades. Really, Alex Dragon was just kind of always churning players, always looking for that little bit of edge over his current roster. And now I'm looking at the overall stats for every team in the league. The lowest number of roster moves for our league this year was 17. The highest was actually Alex Orbeck with 41 roster moves going into week 14. I mean, it's
all right. Orb also had 30 this week, so
yeah, a lot of them
skewed
did
stat.
yeah, slightly skewed stat, but I mean, if we're looking at this league just in terms of how active it was and how fluid the standings were, I mean, it seems like everybody in this league had major roster changes that occurred as the league went on. It was an incredibly active season all the way around.
I'm not going to lie. When you guys were talking about that on the podcast, I went and I looked to see how many moves I had. I was with Scott near the bottom, and I started really churning players, trying to make trades and things like that. And I think the last 4 out of the 5 games I've won. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to the format that we have with a short bench. It's not a league where you can just draft well and then stash players for later in the season. You really do have to work the waiver wire, work your trades, unless you're Wesley and decide to stash everybody who ends up on IR, like your elite quarterback. Yeah, did it almost work?
Honestly, I didn't stash long enough. All right.
Wesley, tell me
two
about
of the quarterbacks I stashed are currently rostered, and nobody would trade for me. So
that is true. You did. I wish there was a stat that was kept on ESPN of how many trade proposals you sent out, because I know for a fact you led the league.
No, nobody needs to see that stat. And
I'm pretty sure you did like 2 a day.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like the Orb skewed stats. I probably sent the same trade to multiple people. Like, I know I sent the same trade to Scott at least 5 times, and I just didn't realize it. It seemed like a good trade to me, and I wanted him to accept. So, but
yeah,
if I can really break into the West for a second here, since y'all are both East gurus, for the defining moment of our league has really been the last 4 weeks. If you look at the win streaks and loss streaks, Corey and Patrick Dragon. Corey had a 3-game win streak. Patrick had a 4-game win streak, and I'm on a 3-game lose streak. I mean, when 2 teams get hot like that and one team gets cold, that's really going to be a defining moment in the league for the playoffs. So props to them for doing that.
I wish I could say the same, because my streak was met with average.
Yeah.
So I was just sorting these stats because I wanted to see if our current playoff seeding would reflect the total points for over the course of the season. I wanted to see how good of a representation this was of who actually had the best teams. And toward the top, it looks pretty solid. We have Alex Dragon at the top in points for. He's obviously won the Western Conference. We have Corey Funderburg right underneath him, which is also reflected in the seeding. We actually have the CPU team with an extremely high points for, but we also heard complaints about their points against all season, and they did lead the league in points against. So that makes sense. That could have come down to a lot of bad luck or bad matchups. And then in 4th place in points for is Patrick Dragon, which makes sense for him to make the playoffs as well. Wesley, if you want a stat that's going to bother you, you actually have more points for going into the last week of the regular season than a 82% playoff team in Alex Orbeck.
Yeah, but that just, I mean, we've been saying that all year, that the West Coast is the best coast when it comes to our league. I mean, yeah. Y'all struggled this year. And honestly, it's not really y'all's fault, because if you look at the rosters of the teams on y'all's side, most of them look stacked. Like even Scott's team, for only having 3 wins, he has a stacked team. So it's been tough sledding.
I think for the bottom teams, some of the handicap, when they had bad games, the teams they were playing against also had bad games, but they had less bad games. And then you look at like one of Scott's losses, I think he had like over 150 points. You know, there's like those huge swings, and they've got good teams, like a couple different matchups in different weeks, and we could be talking about either Corey or Scott as a playoff team, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, you guys
Go,
want
go. Sorry, real quick. Going back to the points four thing, the last trade that I did with Orb, the players. First off, I got two great players from them, and they just laid an egg this week. But we'll get into that later with my high, stellar of a performance. But if I had the two players that I traded for, I would be up there, almost passing Patrick Dragon on the points for, and really changing that outlook of if that would line up.
I wasn't actually going to go through all the matchups, but in pulling up the scoreboard and seeing that my St. Brown into Broken Zones finally put up a good game, I think it's worth going into each matchup and just really talking about it. Starting with my matchup against Alex Dragon, which luckily didn't affect his positioning because it would kind of be a shame to lose to my team just on an absolute heater out of nowhere. My team
What happened to me to Corey? Why couldn't you have done that to him?
I mean, I did do it to
Corey
him.
Eller took me down, toppled the dynasty.
Topple the dynasty, sure. My team was led by Amon-Ra St. Brown, putting up 34. And then I made the decision to flex Christian Watson, which was a late season pickup. Even after I made the trade to really sell the farm and look into next season, Christian Watson sitting there as a free agent, I couldn't resist picking him up, even though he'd probably help a playoff team a lot more. He might actually make my decisions for keeper value for next year a little bit difficult if he maintains that number one role and Aaron Rodgers comes back down to earth a little bit.
That was a real dynamite pickup because I thought Lazard was going to start to come into his own. Aaron Rodgers, his options are pretty thin, and Watson just kind of like surpassed him in one game and hasn't looked back.
Yeah, no, Christian Watson, what I loved seeing in this previous matchup, in this week 13 matchup, was not only did he have a receiving touchdown, but he also ended up with a rushing touchdown on a designed run and around in the red zone. That tells me that he's a key part of the offense. I mean, he's going to start getting used kind of like a Debo in that receiver spot.
So speaking of late pickups that might affect the waiver wire, so the trade deadline has passed, but how does that affect maybe off-season trading with drafting also? So like once we get through the playoffs and everything, if somebody has a keeper they want to trade maybe for some picks, like are we able to do that? How does that work?
That is an excellent question. We have not had any trades for draft picks yet in this league. I'm looking into doing a survey at the end of the season and kind of throwing out there some potential changes, some either format changes, roster changes, trade deadlines, conference realignment, which I think would be really interesting if we did that geographically to make a little bit more sense. I think there's a lot of fun stuff we can do, and people have had some great ideas for the league this year. We've had a lot of open discussion about kind of the state of the union. So I would love to send out that survey at the end of the year and kind of leave an open spot for if anyone has anything that they want to suggest, go ahead and throw it in, and we'll have an active off season in kind of figuring out what this league is going to look like going forward. And one big part of that is, do we allow draft pick trading? Do we, and if we do, like, how do we actually facilitate it? So,
yeah, no, that sounds good. I think that'll be a good discussion. I think that just while we're on the topic, it's something that we really need to think through, because I know that there's already been some frustration with hoarding picks. And if somebody's out and they just hoard to try to get picks next year too, that could also lead to issues. So
yeah,
we got to be smart about it for sure.
One thing I think would have to change personally if we did that, we don't have to get into it too deep, but we would have to have a set draft order, I think, based on finishing position in order to make that valuable. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing a dart at a dartboard, hoping it sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at some point, if you have a lot of these off-season maneuvers that you can do, and then you start playing a strategy around that, what you're getting into is just a dynasty league. Like at that point, we should just change the format to a full dynasty where you just keep all your players and you're truly building a franchise. It's just a matter of, is that what we want? Or do we like having some elements of a redraft where if you have a absolute shit year, or if you get caught with an injury bug, or if I somehow pass my curse over to Wesley Fall and all of his quarterbacks get hurt, do we make that punishment last until you can totally restock, which would be like a multi-year process in a full dynasty?
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. But if we get into dynasty mode, then we also have to reassess the league punishment and everything, because
I think that's gonna be the most fun one. Yeah. That's gonna be the most fun conversation we have. Is we probably do need a more intense league punishment, because honestly, a presentation is fun. I think that should still be just like a fun little tradition we do at the draft. But there should be a legit punishment, because right now I had no qualms with, selling the farm, getting rid of Eckler, getting all kinds of good keeper value.
We know.
Yeah, it's well documented. Yeah, I had no issue with that, because honestly, like, I don't fear that punishment. It's fine. Like, it's not a huge deal. But if, you had to go take the SATs as an adult, or if you had to spend 24 hours in a Waffle House or play golf in a romper or something like that, like that, I would think about it. I would be a little bit more strategic with my end of season trades.
Yeah. I really like the link that Scott sent. The TikTok was awesome. I think that's a great one. Create a burner TikTok account for BS life hacks, or the art gallery with like a set timeline on when you got to finish it. That's pretty good.
That one would have to be modified for me, because that is actually like what I do. So I'm in the process of printing my photos and framing them right now. Like,
well, we could say no photography, or if you have a strong proof,
right? I would literally sell my soul to not come in last if that was the case.
I love that idea. I think it's great. If I'll tell you what would be like worse for me is if, for me, as someone who like works in a creative field, if you made me like not do physical art and instead made me like perform 5 minutes of stand up at an open mic, that I would avoid that like the plague.
I'd love to see you do some clay sculpting personally.
Oh, shut up, dude.
Well, what I loved about it had to be a different type. So you could set 5 different types of art: painting, sculpting, metalwork. And metalwork for us, obviously, I don't think anybody knows how to weld here. You'd have to like twist wires together. You could do a bunch of interesting things.
I think the funniest part about that is that it has to be open to the public. Like, you have to advertise it. You have to like make it a thing. You have to invite criticism from people we do not know, and take it seriously. I think that'd be hilarious. But there should be a conversation about a league punishment, because I do think we can step it up. I think this league deserves, it already has a good reward. It should have an equal but opposite punishment.
Agreed.
All right. That being said, we'll go through the week 13 matchups super quick. I beat Alex Dragon thanks to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was a high scoring matchup, and we'll take it for what it is. The CPU ended up beating Scott, which really helped me as far as establishing the toilet bowl and making sure that I'm 1 win ahead of that. CPU team beat him mainly because of Jalen Hurts putting up 34. But man, Scott's team with Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, the trade that he made with me for David Montgomery has paid off. David Montgomery has been putting up some decent numbers. Yeah, I mean, Scott has a good team. It just has not clicked when he needed it to. I mean, a big part of this was also Jimmy G going down, but didn't get what he needed from Alvin Kamara. And then on the other side, really just Jalen Hurts popping off, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. That's tough to beat.
I think in fantasy leagues, the running back is typically like the anchor of a team. And Kamara has been that anchor before, especially in fantasy. But with the change in offense and styles, dual back systems, it becomes like even more of a, I don't know, kind of like a great white buffalo to have like a Dalvin Cook or something like that and be able to exploit their talent. Because I would love to have Kamara, but like last week, he put up a terrible game.
Yeah, I think this year, I don't know if you guys have seen this in a lot of NFL media, but they've been talking a lot about shell coverages and how teams are giving up the middle of the field and really just trying to prevent that deep play. I think what that has done is it has made those really good yards after catch receivers, those really good big play threats, whether it's a Tyreek Hill who can catch a ball and run, or like a Devontae Adams who can just tower over people in the end zone and still get that big play. It's made the big play receiver that much more valuable, because what we're not seeing in this league that's really valuable, even in a full PPR format, the Pierre Garçons, the Jarvis Landrys, the Deontay Johnson, who was supposed to be a like possession receiver king, and that has just not been valuable in this league.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's been like interesting this season. I feel like with DK, even for me last week, him being able to just show up and score a couple touchdowns and have a dynamite game on those big plays is what helped me win last week for sure. But my running backs have been few and far between, so that's definitely a change in the game for sure.
Wesley, you got
Yeah.
anything for us, or can we go ahead and move into the lowest scoring performance of week 13?
Well, before we do that, I'd like to say one thing. I'm pretty sure Scott was a big hater on Jimmy G at one point in the season and wouldn't trade for me. So sad Jimmy G got hurt, but couldn't have happened to a better opponent.
Oh my God.
So,
so salty. The road salt that you're spitting out.
With that being said, Scott's team put up 100 points without a quarterback, if you look at it. Like even his flex is a wide receiver. So he has a solid team, just doesn't have a quarterback. So
Yeah, hopefully he'll address that going into next year.
yeah. But we can move on.
Speaking of the some incredible performances and quarterbacks, you want to tell me about all these single digits I'm seeing here for the Chubb That'll Make You Waddle team putting up 62.58 week 13. How does that make you feel?
Do y'all hear that? Oh yeah, me neither. My team's pretty quiet. They suck.
Boo. Just boo all things about that. You had one player in double digits, and that was Tom Brady.
Yeah, the GOAT, he showed up, showed out.
Oh my
took the
God. With
Saints down.
17 points. Also, just as a Saints fan, I have to say this. As soon as we turned that ball over and gave Tom Brady anything more than like a minute and a half on the clock, and all he had to do was score a touchdown, I turned the TV off. I walked away. I knew we were going to lose that game. I can't stand it when Tom Brady gets the ball and you see it coming down the tracks and you can't stop it.
Yeah. I mean, so the dissection of my game this week, traded for Waddle, traded for Chubb. They both put up a season low for me this week. So that sucks that I traded for two pretty good players throughout the year and they just laid an egg on the same week. Outside of that, if I hadn't traded them, not knowing that Patrick's team would have only put up 95, I actually might have had a shot of beating them and would have been back in the playoff contention. But I mean, you don't know that going into it. So I still stand by the trade that I made of trying to rebuild a little bit. Everybody's hating on Deshaun Watson. It is what it is. I didn't expect him to go out there and light it up, even though he was projected like 19 points, which is insane for somebody that hasn't played in a year and a half or whatever.
I also did not understand that projection from ESPN. I understand why. Like, okay, so the more I listen to Mike Clay, the more I understand how ESPN's projections work. It's less them actually projecting, like someone saying, I think Deshaun Watson will score 19 points. It is more they are putting in like the expected number of passes, rushes, yards per rush. I think his inflated stats from before he left led to that 19.2 projection, which obviously, like, coming back super rusty, like obviously just wasn't clicking with the team. I didn't understand the projection, but he is a player with like that kind of raw talent where he could, in like one of those miracle settings where he just shows up and plays. But yeah, I think that was the computer giving him a lot of edge.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even really want to play him. But Hopkins was on bye and Mixon was out with a concussion, so I couldn't even flex a real player in my flex. So I just rolled with it, tried to see what he could do, knowing that it probably wouldn't be great.
I bet you that ESPN knows, like deep down, whoever's setting those numbers, that he's probably going to have a bad game 2 years out. But they got to go by the stats. Otherwise, it could just get wild,
I mean, that's what it is, because if you're just shooting for accuracy in the industry, you're going to develop your algorithm to basically play the middle as much as you can, but it has to do that based on something. And with Deshaun Watson's stats before he left, it obviously pushed him into a higher tier than he deserved to be coming back after 2 years. But all that was perfect timing for high knees in an airplane. Pat Dragon's team only putting up 95 and weathering a matchup against you that, I mean, realistically, you could have popped off and then affected the playoff seeding. But Patrick Dragon ends up 9-4, tied with the other two in his division, and keeps his current playoff seed.
Yeah, I mean, good for him.
The next matchup that we have was Gavin winning against Alex Orbeck, taking down the division leader. Gavin putting up 131 points. I see lots of 20+ performances. Justin Fields at 19, Samaje Perine, which I'm very salty about, Keenan Allen at 20+, and DK Metcalf. You're welcome for both of those. Samaje Perine and DK Metcalf. You're welcome for both of those.
I'm not going to lie. On Sunday, it was looking pretty bleak, and we had just gotten up to my in-laws' house, and I'm getting ready to watch some of the games, and I was flipping through because I was looking up a stat for my father-in-law, and all of a sudden I see P Ryan there at 16 points. I'm like, I can't not pick this guy up. And he delivered, man. That guy, he's good. He's going to have a job somewhere else. Like, this is one of my cold takes. I might consider him as a keeper. I don't know, because if he lands a job somewhere else as maybe a starting back.
Do we know what's his contract situation?
Do
we know?
I don't. I need to look it up before
I'm looking it up.
Decision, but
I'm stoked that Mixon had a concussion at the end of the season and not mid-season, because I think they have to go into a split backfield at this point. I mean, he's been stellar 2 games in a row, so it's like Mixon isn't a keeper, and he had it was late in the season, so I don't know. I'd be skeptical about drafting him next year if they keep Perine.
Yeah, I was kind of curious on whether or not I should play him. They projected him really low, so I took him out of my starting lineup. But I think given how well he does in the passing game, they've got to use him more, especially on third downs.
Yeah, well, I think they projected him low because Mixon's supposed to be back this week. So
Right.
even if he's back, they're going to split it some. So.
That was also why I dropped him, because Mixon was not ruled out at the time that I dropped P Ryan. So only a little salty about that. P Ryan is on a 2-year contract that runs through next season. So it'll be 1 more year in Cincinnati before he hits the market. Our last matchup that we'll talk about before we have to take a quick break is Corey Funderburg putting up 171 against Corey Eller, who put up 151 but still lost in a really high-flying matchup. Corey's top scorer, the Browns defense, scoring 31 points, by far the highest defensive point value we've seen, up against Houston, in Houston, no less. That game was wild. It was like all defensive plays that scored up until way late in the game.
Yeah, I think they only had 1 offensive touchdown total on both sides.
Yeah, that game was wild. If you love defense, that game was it for you. So that's going to wrap up the Week 13 matchups. I've got a surprise for you guys and a surprise for the league. I have acquired press conference recordings from all 3 of our playoff lock managers. So I'll play those for you whenever we get back. But for now, quick commercial break. All right, we are back at it. Feel like we're starting to hit our groove. We're getting back into a rhythm here on the podcast. We're going to start off with our press conferences from our division winners and playoff locks, starting with no other than Patrick Dragon. Here's his message to the league.
Hey guys, Pat Dragon of High Knees in an Airplane, coach, owner, manager, GM, waterboy, player. Anyway, we're playoff bound, so I don't care what my titles are. We're going to win the championship. Unless we come up against Corey, that would really suck. That would really, really suck because he's been really dominating everybody. But, we got 3 people from the Division of Champions going to the playoffs, so I'm feeling real good. This upcoming week, I think I'm just going to be benching my guys. Really want to get them the appropriate rest that we need, so I think Tyler Heineke is going to be coming off the bench, really showing us what he's got for next year. Might be a keeper. I don't know. I basically just destroyed my entire chance of winning anything for next year, so I'll take what I can get at this point. It's Taylor Heineke. Feeling real good about that. Talk to you guys later.
always a good sign when your head coach pronounces your name Tyler and Taylor in the same press conference.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Pat
Yeah.
never fails to deliver.
I think honestly, he's got it locked up. He really should play some bench players, and maybe when you watch this, Pat, maybe you should make a bet with the group and pick a bench player that you start. And if they're your high scorer for the week next week, you have to keep them next year.
Ooh,
know,
Now,
go-
keeper bet.
If
Yeah.
Pat loses, does his standing change at all?
That is a great question.
No, because he's fourth already. So he's
Yeah,
like the
so-
fourth playoff seed.
Is that correct? Yeah. Hold on. I was
'Cause
gonna.
it looks like Orb has a worse record, but it looks like the winners of each division get 1 and 2 regardless.
Correct.
And so 3 and 4, it's based on the record with Corey Funderburg. They're both 9 and 4. Corey has it on points 4 right now. So if Patrick loses and Corey loses, again it goes back to point spread, which should be Corey. So
Mhm.
I mean, and plus, if Patrick loses, what better way to set up a Dragon Ball right off
Yep.
the bat?
Exactly. So you bring up a good point. We'll talk about the projected playoff matchups after we get through our press conferences. Our next one was submitted by Corey Funderburg, the manager who Patrick Dragon fears the most. So let's take a look.
Fear the bird.
Yeah, fear the Berg.
I'd like to first thank Jesus Christ for allowing me to make the playoffs. And then I'd also like to thank my Alabama running back, Josh Jacobs, for putting the smack down, getting me 30 points almost 2 weeks in a row. I'd also like to thank all my sponsors, Coca-Cola, DraftKings, and Bud Light. Here's the playoff, boys. Good luck.
I hate that so much. Like words cannot describe how much I hate what he just said.
Well,
wearing his Alabama gear nonetheless.
you were legitimately flipping off the camera the entire
Yes.
time.
Yes, I was. I don't need to hear about how Bama's built different when we're in the NFL right now. Get out of here.
Hey man, he just knows what he likes. He's pulling players out of that Nick Saban system. You know, it worked. It clearly works.
I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that
I
was
went and
the
got
first
myself
time-
a couple, but I don't want to hear about it.
I think that was the first time I'd ever actually seen him. Because when I was at your house for the draft, there was a bunch of people on TV, and
That means
All
you
right,
didn't watch
that's
the
fine.
podcast Corey was in.
Yeah, you really outed
didn't-
yourself on that one. You're
I
telling me you
didn't. I
don't.
didn't watch it. I listened to it on my way into work.
Ah, there
Oh,
you go,
okay,
there
all
you
right,
go,
yeah,
there
good save,
you
good
go. Yeah, quick one.
Yeah. So, what are your initial thoughts, Gavin, having seen Corey Funderburg for the first time in full championship regalia?
Well, it's not championship regalia because Bama's not in it this year. So,
You just
You know,
had to sneak that in. Had to do it.
I think that's a valid point. Maybe it's a trend, and Corey's on the outside looking in for the championship game.
Oh my
God,
I'm with Gavin here.
I somehow managed to schedule the Auburn grad and the notorious SEC hater on this podcast after Alabama gets eliminated.
Hey, Mike Price. That's all I have to say. That's what Funderburg would say to me. So I'm going to say it here. No, I think he's got a good chance. Honestly, like Pat said, he's been real hot. 170 points is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
Doesn't he hold the high as well, or is that Corey Eller?
Hold on.
No, Funderburg does. He has
Fun-
180.
yeah.
He did it last week, I'm pretty sure. 180.
Yeah, he's putting up multiple plus 160 games. Like that's to be reckoned with.
Yeah, let's see. Funderburg put up 170 this past week, and then the week before that put up 184. That was the week that Josh Jacobs went off for 48.
Yeah, he's got it though. That's formidable.
Yeah, I mean he's got quite the team. It's pretty cool to see it all come together, which is funny because if I remember right, when we first started this season, Joe Burrow got off to a slow start. Josh Jacobs got off to a slow start. And he was heavily invested in several Raiders players, including Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and I believe he had Darren Waller too, who really hasn't done anything all year, but he pivoted away from Waller to get Everett. Yeah, I mean, this team has really come together late and peaking at the right time.
Yeah, he actually tried to trade me Waller, and I said no. But I have to tell you what, I hated how much he was invested in the Raiders. Warbeck and I are Broncos fans, and the Raiders are just a no-go. It hurts me to have Derek Carr on my team.
And you have to pull for that's not just any player on the Raiders, it's Derek Carr. It's the quarterback.
And I have to pull for him. So
brutal. Yeah, I was wondering why you made that trade with me for Derek Carr.
There was other things in the works like DK, but other than that, there was nothing.
But hey, thank God I got Andy Dalton, am I right?
Yep. You asked for him, so
Are our playoff games 1 week each, or are they 2 weeks?
Yeah, they're only 1 week each. So that way we don't get into week 17 BSness where half the teams have phoned it in. For our last press conference, looks like Alex Dragon was having some issues sending in his video, but he sent me a transcript of what he would like to say to the league. So here's what it is. Thank you guys for having me. Can't wait for next year. The playoffs will be a dogfight, and the Dragon Bowl could be a crazy matchup. My waiver pickups were mostly luck. Half of my starting lineup is from waivers this year. Not a single player has a championship locked up. Hopefully everyone performs to their best, and may the best man win. That a loving message in spoken word prose from Alex Dragon.
I mean, that was so nice. He's won me over. I'm a fan. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, that was a little too wholesome.
That was way better than the last thing we just listened to. So you got a believer here.
All right. So that being said, let's take a look at the upcoming matchups that we have, because there are a couple competitive spots. Like I said, that last playoff spot is being competed for by Alex Orbeck in the CPU team. Alex Orbeck has that 82% playoff chance, whereas CPU would need a couple things to fall the right way and has an 18% chance of getting in. So starting off with Alex's matchup, Alex Orbeck faces no other than Wesley Fall. Wesley, what are you looking for in this matchup, and what has to happen for Alex against you this week?
So somehow I have missed this. So if y'all have heard this, let me know. But Waddle is questionable with a fibula injury. So that might explain why he had no points last week. And if he's out again this week, I have no hope of messing up the playoffs.
What was that, the one thread you were hanging on to?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping Mixon comes back from the concussion, so I get the normalcy there. Hopefully Chubb does something. I got Hopkins back, so I got a couple playmakers back this week, but really needed Waddle to do something stellar. I think I'm pretty sure I'm projected 10 or 15 points less than him right now. So
yeah, current projections have you sitting at 119, a full 10 points below Alex's 129.
Yeah, and I mean his top two players. Well, I say top two. I guess he has McCaffrey as number 2, but Barkley and Mahomes, I mean, I had them all season. They're going to put up 20 points. They just do it week in and week out. So
I'll tell you, the thing with Alex Orbeck's team is that Mahomes and Kelsey stack. Kelsey is by far the most valued target on that team. So having that stack is tough. And not to mention tight end is horrible. You have the number 3 tight end in TJ Hawkinson, and the projections are a full 5 points off. The averages are a full 8 points off between those two, and those are the number 1 and number 3 tight ends of the year.
What's the keeper value on Alex's team? Because I mean, that trade literally created the super team. If everything in the cards line up, that is a super team.
I mean, I don't know about that. He has Huntley as his backup quarterback. And
he picked him up.
Zay Jones is his number 2 wide receiver, though. I'm just saying, it's a good team, but there's other teams that can definitely rival him or beat him. So,
if we're looking at keeper values,
I took his number 1 running back, gave him my number 1 running back, and gave him a quarterback that took his questionably number 1 receiver. So, I mean, I took just as much from him, if not the same, because of the keeper value, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, if we're looking at keeper values, his first 3 players, Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley, all drafted in either the first or second round. Travis Kelce is probably the most interesting one that he has because Travis Kelce wasn't drafted until the 4th round. So that would make him a second round keeper for next year, which I think is going to be a steal no matter what pick you have.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Kelsey, second round or later is a steal.
Yeah.
But before the trade, he had Chubb that was also a second round keeper. So he had some keeper value. And I don't know. I truly believe Chubb and Barkley was kind of a wash. So he really got a quarterback out of the deal.
Yeah. Well, it's clearly worked out for him. He's sitting at first in the East Division. Looking at a matchup against you, pretty much already knocked out of playoffs. If Alex
Pretty
wins
much,
this,
I am.
yeah, it's a 0% chance. I was trying to be nice.
Thanks.
Yeah. If Alex wins, Wesley, you're up on the different scenarios for playoffs. If Alex wins against you, does that secure his spot in the playoffs and move him to 100%?
Oh, yeah, because the CPU is the next closest person, and he's already a game back. So if he gets a dub, he's in. He has the destiny in his hands. He's sitting where he wants to be sitting. Technically, his playoff starts 1 week early, you know?
All right. So with that, let's take a look at the CPU matchup. CPU is facing Alex Dragon, currently projected 113 to Alex Dragon's 130. So it'll be a tough ask to try and get a win out of this matchup. But what is the scenario to get a CPU team in the playoffs?
They have to win, and I have to win because I think they'll have the point differential. I will bring up one thing looking at their lineup. Since it is a CPU, are CPUs not allowed to pull off of waivers because they currently don't even have a wide receiver in the lineup due to IR?
So the way that it's written in the ESPN explanation of putting a team onto a CPU manager is it will optimize the lineup based on injuries and availability and projections. It is surprising, now that I'm looking at this, it is surprising to see Cooper Kupp still in that lineup. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Has the CPU had Cooper Kupp in the lineup every week, regardless of its IR status?
No, because Mooney didn't get IR till like last week, I think. So it's
Gotcha.
there are no other
Mooney's-
receivers for them to choose.
Mooney's been in the lineup the last 2 weeks in a row. So I think that there was no trades, and I don't believe they're picking up any waiver wires or anything.
Correct.
Like that.
So what it says online for this is that a CPU managed team will not process any trades, and it will, I guess it will not actively pick up players off the waiver wire either. It will not make that decision because the free agent budget hasn't been touched. So
Interesting.
yeah, it looks like it's just a matter of there are not any active receivers on this team. I'm wondering, part of me feels like we should be able to slot in a receiver if there are.
If you want to roster a full team, that's
the right thing to do would be to put, like Thielen or something on Matt's old team. Honestly, like Thielen is the first available receiver, and if you put him on there, then it's a real look at what a matchup is.
Yeah, Wesley does bring up a good point. Wesley, would you care to elaborate on what you just said there?
I mean, you're just you're not one to roster a full team. You don't like kickers and defenses, you know. So
I don't.
It's interesting to see you take the stance that we should have a fully rostered team. I'm in full agreement, but you know, it's an interesting point of view, Chris.
Yeah, no, that, you know what? These are fair criticisms. Feel free to fill out the survey at the end of the year. No, this is a good question. I'd be curious to know, the guys who are watching the podcast, get in the group me and let me know what you think about at least filling this out with a receiver that can play. This is also scheduled for Thursday night, so we're gonna have to make this decision relatively
Can you look
quick.
and see if Mooney got injured in last week's game? Because if he already played one spot with somebody in IR, then we can't change what we've done. But if he got injured, if he got injured in the games, then we should talk about it.
Darnell Mooney was projected 0 points for week 13, and it was still started by the CPU.
Then I think we just have to let it ride.
We just have to let it ride.
Yeah, we didn't catch it a week early. Whoever played him last week got the benefit of it.
Yeah, the injury for Mooney occurred in week 12. Darnell Mooney was projected 11, scored 0 due to the injury. But
wait. He didn't. Oh, he got injured in week 12. Okay. Hang on. So but he was.
Yeah, sorry. So last week, week 12, Mooney was projected 11,
yeah.
scored 0.
Yeah, he was injured in the game. And if there's playoff implications, giving whoever's playing him an easier ride because we missed it 1 week doesn't sit well.
Yeah,
Guess we'll have to vote on it. But
yeah, so everyone who's paying attention, go ahead and get in the group me. And I do think we should clarify for next year. Wesley, I agree with you. I think there should be a rule written down in the books that says you do have to start a full lineup, because otherwise it does kind of like take away the point of having a short bench. That was not the peak of my management prowess, not having a full lineup, because I was trying to play the waiting game and then waited too long. Yeah. I think there is value in probably swapping that out, because I did not expect, putting this team on CPU, that both of the available receivers here would end up on IR and unavailable. Also, this bench is running back heavy. It's Kareem Hunt, AJ Dillon, Raheem Mostert, Alexander Madison, and on IR currently is Kyron Williams, who should be activated.
Yeah, there were a lot of cuffs going on.
Yeah, a lot of handcuffing on this team before it was taken over by the CPU. So that is an interesting point of order. Let's take a look. Now that we've seen the top, let's take a look down toward the bottom and see what the playoff bracket looks like for the Toilet Bowl. Let's get a Toilet Bowl preview. Currently slotted in the number 10 spot is Scott Sharp at 3-10. And in number 9 is Corey Eller, also at 3-10. With my one victory taking me to 4-9, I have avoided the Toilet Bowl for now. I do believe Scott has the points for advantage on me by a few. So if I win this week, I can avoid the Toilet Bowl. If I lose, I have to make sure that Scott doesn't put up enough points to, I got to make sure that I'm still out of the Toilet Bowl based on the points for differential. Gavin, your thoughts? Ooh. Gavin, your thoughts on a Toilet Bowl featuring Corey Eller, who has already given a presentation on his team, and Scott Sharp, who inherited a team and is in full rebuild?
I'll be honest with you, it would probably be the most electric Toilet Bowl because both those teams have the chance to just go off. That would be a fun one to get like a pool together, because ESPN, if you're on the desktop or laptop, it gives you a point spread. It'd be fun to like snapshot a time and say, okay, guys, here's the spread, like, and take bets on it, honestly.
Gavin, as someone who's sitting in 7th place in fantasy purgatory where can't really do anything, would you be willing to take point on taking bets for the Toilet Bowl?
Absolutely, I would.
Yeah, at 6 and 7, you're clear of the Toilet Bowl, but you're at least adjacent to it to where you can see what's going on down here.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I was definitely nervous about. I know I'm safely out now, but had a couple weeks gone a little bit differently, I would be in those shoes too. And like I said, both of those teams have the ability to go off. So that would be a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Eller's team just put up 150, and Scott's team put up 113 in this last matchup, but I believe
like 150 last week, right? Or the week before.
Yeah, it was 117, 100 and oh no, sorry.
161 in week.
Yeah,
8.
129, 119, 127. Like both of these teams are very boom or bust. So I think you're right. We could have a really high flying Toilet Bowl.
I really think so. And I'm very nervous because I know that Corey has that ability, and he made a couple roster moves or one roster move in the last day that put him to be projected more points than me in our last matchup, which doesn't make me feel good. I don't have that warm and fuzzy butterfly feeling.
So yeah, speaking of roster moves, let's take a look at some of the recent transactions. We'll avoid talking about matchups in the fantasy purgatory of the 6-7 in the 5, 6, 7, 8 spots. So let's take a look at some of the recent transactions. I had 2 transactions because I had Cole Kmet and Chase McLaughlin both on bye this week, and I am technically still trying to stay out of the toilet bowl and make sure I have that points for differential over Scott. So I felt like it was worthwhile to go ahead and do that.
I just appreciate you really being dedicated to rostering a full team.
Yep, I've learned my lesson, Wesley. I'm tired of taking shit for it. So I'm really trying to improve as a person, and I would appreciate being called a hero from here on out. Thank you.
I just gave you props. I'm proud of it. You're doing it way ahead of time too. It's not Monday night, you know?
I've learned
you're
that
bettering yourself, and I love it.
I've learned that for a commissioner of a fantasy football league, I do not watch a lot of football. I always seem to find other things to do. Which is really unfortunate for when I need to make roster moves. Other moves, a lot of them happening in free agency, not a lot of dollars being spent, but free agents moved. We got Corey Eller making 3 moves, picking up a kicker, swapping out a defense, dropping the Browns defense after an incredible 31-point performance, and adding the Raiders, taking a shot on them against the Rams on a Thursday Night Football. And then also picking up a tight end. And then, Wesley, you mentioned this one. We saw a lot of moves from Alex Orbeck. Dropping Juju Smith-Schuster, pick up Donovan Peoples-Jones from Cleveland, picking up the Chiefs defense, adding Zay Jones, which I do think is a great pick, especially out of free agency, because he's had a decent amount of targets going his way. And then also picking up Tyler Huntley, the Baltimore quarterback, who will be filling in for Lamar Jackson.
That was a good pickup, I think. I debated that one, but ultimately didn't pull the trigger because I wanted to keep Fields on his bye week. But
yeah,
that's a good pickup, I think.
Yeah, Huntley actually did all right. I believe it was 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown, which kept him, pretty high up there in fantasy scoring, even for someone who's just kind of filling in for an absolute superstar. I think with a full week of practice as well, you're gonna get a lot.
He's also filled in for Lamar before when he's been out. He's not new to the offense.
Yeah.
And the Denver defense, as terrible as my team is, they have a really good defense. And to be able to put up numbers versus them, he can put up numbers versus anybody, I think.
Do you think the Denver defense might actually be good for someone who is starting Tyler Huntley at quarterback? Because if the coverage downfield is good and they have a pass rush on, Tyler Huntley is the kind of quarterback who can break out of the pocket and just run. He's going to get you more fantasy value doing that than trying to be Tom Brady and make accurate passes.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Can we really hone in on this, though, for a second and talk about that we're in week 14 and Russell Wilson just got dropped? Week 14. It took him 14 weeks to realize he needed to go bye-bye. That's insane to me.
Part of me does feel bad because looking at this transaction log, I see Russell Wilson, who I traded to Alex after week 2 for Amon-Ra St. Brown, getting dropped. And then I also see Juju Smith-Schuster, who I traded to Alex Orbeck, getting dropped in week 14 too. It was just, you got to sell them high.
But I will say Juju is an interesting drop because if there's all the teams out there in the middle not playing for the playoffs or the toilet bowl, I think he might be a decent keeper. I don't know what round he was drafted, but if it was kind of later,
I can tell you it was 6th round. We swapped
never mind.
we swapped our 6th round picks in that trade because I had David Montgomery, who I drafted 57th, and Alex had Juju, who he drafted 58th right afterwards. So we just swapped those 2 picks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think Juju in the Kansas City offense isn't as much of a weapon as he was in Pittsburgh because they have so many weapons. So
yeah, and in the words of Iron Man, they have a Hulk in Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I knew Alex Orbeck would appreciate that as our resident Marvel expert on that analysis. All right. So we're looking into week 14. Do you guys have any bets so we can kind of wrap up the podcast here? We got a few minutes left. Let's take some bets on week 14. You guys see any matchups that are spicy? Anything you want to take a spread on? We saw Wesley Fall make good on some Fireball.
Yeah,
I feel like it
who-
needs to happen again.
Yeah, let me look it over for a quick second. Do you have
Yeah.
any in mind?
So looking into week 14, the one that has the most value as far as playoff potential, seeding, all that is really going to be Alex Orbeck facing you, Wesley. If he wins against you, he gets into the playoffs and we have our 4th playoff spot locked. I am looking at the spread. Currently, it is 10 points in the favor of Alex Orbeck. Let's see. He has Mahomes and Kelsey. Mahomes and Kelsey are both facing Denver in Denver. Huge AFC West matchup in real football terms. I don't think Mahomes and Kelsey have as good a day as they typically have. In the past 2 weeks against the Rams and Cincinnati, Mahomes has been kept to under 20 points. Wesley, I have a feeling that you might cover this game.
So 10 points. You're giving me 10 points.
Yeah, I have a feeling you might keep it within 10.
I really thought I was going to make a Deshaun Watson supporter out of you.
I don't know. I can't support Deshaun Watson. I can't. Well, first of all, you'll never make me a supporter of Deshaun Watson. But I can't get behind it after putting up only 5 points. Like
I agree.
I don't
Here's-
see
here-
it.
He's a next year bet.
Here's the take, though. I don't know if you're going to cover. I know I got cold takes, but you got to remember that Kelsey plays the slot and tight end. The Denver Bronco defense has fantastic corners and fantastic safeties. They're a little bit weak at linebacker. And I don't know if they've got somebody that can cover Kelsey. So he is kind of like a weak spot in that Denver defense where he could really go off. And then if he goes off, Mahomes goes off.
That's true.
Keep that in mind.
Wesley, you got anything that looks spicy?
Oh, dude. No.
No.
I mean,
My
I'm
spicy one
looking it
told-
over.
For my matchup versus Corey,
Yeah.
if I lose and he wins and you lose, you're in the toilet bowl.
Oh, I'm well aware. I have to win mine
That's
to 100% avoid. Although not necessarily, because he's in the West and I'm in the East. So it really comes down to Scott's matchup. If Scott loses, he's if Scott loses, he's in the toilet bowl. And if I lose but don't clear the point differential and Scott wins, then I end up in the toilet bowl. Because I am 1 game ahead of Scott.
There's a tricky one there. What if Scott's team goes off?
I know. That's what I'm worried about. His team's only projected 116 to Corey Funderburg's 131. So I'm a big Corey Funderburg guy going into this week.
I'm pretty sure, though, once you get away from the league winners, it's kind of a mumble jumbo of teams that are in a position. So I don't know if it matters what conference you're in for the toilet bowl.
I'll tell you what. I'll make a bet for 1 shot that my team, because my team's projected 115.8, Scott's is projected 116.2. I bet my team outscores Scott's. We're not facing each other, but on a pure points basis, I bet you I outscore Scott Sharp this week, week 14, and stay out of the toilet bowl.
Wow.
I'll make
You
that
guys are
first shot.
projected almost
Wait,
the
that's two.
exact
That's
same.
2 different things. So not only do you outscore him, but you stay in the toilet bowl.
I'll parlay it for 2 shots.
Parlay it. That's like 3.
You have Oh. Yeah, the parlay is good. I like
Yeah.
that. I'll take it.
You'll go against me on the parlay. You think
Yeah, you got to keep her.
you think either Scott outscores me or I end up in the toilet bowl or both. I think I stay out of the toilet bowl and I outscore Scott.
Yeah, write that one down. Write that
Okay.
one down.
All right, you're taking me on that. Gavin, are you in on that?
Yeah.
2 shots.
You outscore or you're in the toilet bowl. Is that the one or is it both?
It's both. I'm saying both have to be true. I'm parlaying it for 2 shots as opposed to taking the individuals for 1.
2 or none.
Yeah, I say 2 or 0.
Oh man.
Hey,
How
Mr.
do-
Funderburg, I got some money I can throw your way if you throw. But go ahead.
Don't you dare do that. I think I only have to outscore Scott's team this week by like 13 or something to get the points for tiebreaker.
I
Yeah.
think it hinges on
I think it's
if
close.
Michael Carter is going to play personally, because I don't know if he's cleared yet to come back. And if he isn't, then I have the New York Jets running back, and I'm not really sure what he's going to do with all of his people on bye. So I kind of want to see where that ends up if anything changes in the next day, because if Michael Carter is playing, I'm going to take Scott, but if he's not playing, I'm going to take you.
Scott's got this all day. I'm all in.
Gavin, I'm gonna need you to make a choice right now. I've already written down me on one side, Wesley on the other side. Which side do you want?
Let me guess. He's not going to be on my side.
No, he might. I mean, you're taking the no condition on a 2-leg parlay.
I'm so torn. I gotta look. Let me look at Michael Carter. What his projection is.
Oh my gosh.
While he's doing that, Chris, can you pull up who has the least amount of money left?
It's probably
I saw
I'm
this
down there.
CPU team has $6 left.
Oh wow.
I only have 7, so I'm not far behind.
So I'm gonna throw this out there while you're looking into your stuff, Gavin. Not for this coming year, but maybe the following year. If we wanted to change some of the rules, we could possibly use Fab as our draft order. Just
That is an
hypothetical.
interesting thought.
What's Fab? Tell me what Fab is, because I
The,
don't
the,
know.
the money
Alex-
you have left.
Also, I'm gonna go ahead and say Alex Orbeck has $0 left.
Not surprised. But anyway, so like the person with the most money left would have the first pick, is what I'm throwing out there. We can't do it this year because it wasn't in place, but something to think about.
That is a very interesting thought. Yeah, because basically what that would do is that would add an extra layer of strategy to how many pickups you make during the year versus would you rather have a better pickup in the draft?
Yep.
Well, the keepers kind of make that a little fuzzy. So, me
That is
personally,
true.
I like the random draft order. If we're not going to go by where you finish, I like kind of like the bingo style where the NASCAR thing we did. I don't think very
Yeah.
many of us know anything about NASCAR.
Yeah, totally random.
And
I was,
free
I was
agent
into it
budget,
that
like,
Sunday, that's for sure.
Oh, I've never
tried-
been more into a race.
right? I tried saving my free agent budget for the end of the year, and you can kind of see how that paid off. Made pretty bad purchases at the end of the year in desperation and didn't even end up really keeping any of them. So there is an element to wanting to keep some of that. But at the same time, if it's a free agent budget, then you're going to have that guy that has a shitty team and keeps all the money until the end of the season. They could have $99.
Hey, it's a
$100.
strategy, but then they have to do the punishment. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Yeah,
They might be good enough to be second or third
Yeah,
worst.
yeah. That's
Hey,
that's an interesting thought. Gavin, to your point, one thing I do like about having a totally random draft order is you're selecting keepers, or you're kind of planning the whole year on like what keeper value you have without knowing your draft order.
Yep.
Which is exciting. So I
Exactly.
do like that. Gavin, make a pick real quick. We have less than a minute left.
All right, I'm going to go you.
All right.
I think
All right.
Carter's out. Otherwise, I'd be siding with Wes, but it's got to be you.
All right. Sounds good. And with that, we're wrapping it up. Thank you guys. Good luck in week 14. And next time we'll see you, it'll be playoffs.
Woo.
Peace
Cheers.
out.